Hello and welcome back to the show. I am so excited about today's episode as we have hormone cycle coach Pauline Gisele with us sharing all of her wonderful wisdom. Pauline has over a decade worth of experience helping women to balance their hormones naturally. And today we're going to be delving into the different ways that you can optimize your health and fertility. So I've been following Pauline's work for quite some time now, and she was actually one of the catalysts for me coming off the contraceptive pill after 13 years. So I am really excited to dive into this conversation and discuss all things hormone, cycle related, and PMS related. So let's begin. Pauline, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you so much. I have been following you for quite some time now. I think I first came across your work in about 2020. And I don't know if you know this, but you were actually one of the catalysts that inspired me to come off the contraceptive pill after being on it for 13 years. So I am super excited, yeah, to kind of delve into this more and to really kind of, yeah, hear from you and your wisdom. So for those that don't know you and are new to meeting you today, can you share with us a little bit about your health journey and kind of what made you want to become a coach? How did you start learning about hormone cycle awareness? And yeah, basically, like what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, thank you. So basically, I would say the start of it all was that I always wanted to be a doctor. Since a very young girl, I was like, wow, I know that like health is what I want to get into. It's fascinating. And then it came to my period, and I was having 2 week long periods. I had debilitating cramps. It would just go all the way down to my legs, and I wouldn't be able to go to work or school. And then I went to the clinic to go see a doctor because I was like, I can't live my life with 2 week long periods and really bad cramps. So at Planned Parenthood, the doctor just said, you know what, you don't even need a period. That's for old time's sake. And I thought, well, you're the doctor. I want to be like you, and anything you say is, you're my idol. So I'll take it. And so I was on hormonal birth control for 10 years. I was mainly on the pill. I had the implant on at one point, the thing in your arm, and I just bled constantly for 6 months straight. And during that entire time, I was studying medicine. So I was going through high school, and then I went on to do the first 4 years of the medical journey in the US, which was pre-medicine. So biology, anatomy, physiology, chemistry, organic chemistry, and all that. And then finally, in my fifth year, so I was learning about what pills to give basically in class. And I was raising my hand and asking, but wait, why does this person have diabetes? And the teacher would say, no, no, you don't need to learn that. You just need to know what pill to give. And so that's when I was like, there's just something deep inside of me that for me, health is about more preventative and natural health. Like, how do we be the healthiest person possible, not covering up symptoms? And so that's actually when I left medical school. I left that route because to me it wasn't about health. It was about just covering up symptoms, and it wasn't getting to the root cause. So before spending all my time and stress and energy and money on the rest of medical school, I left, and I went traveling. I I was feeling so disconnected to myself, although I had, fallen in love with a new partner. I was traveling around the world. I was working remotely. I had the dream life and that freedom. And I was just like, why do I feel disconnected inside? And depressed and just like meh. And thankfully, my ex-boyfriend told me, maybe you should come off the pill. And I said, you know what? That's a good idea. It's been 10 years. I try to do everything else naturally. But of course, I was terrified to come off and to go back to 2 week long periods and things like that, because that's what the doctor had told me that, you're like this for the rest of your life.
Mm.
And so I came off, I went through a year depression, I lost half my hair, and I had no idea what was going on. I would just be in the botanical gardens and go to the museum, be with the person I love, doing all the things I love to do, and just cry for no reason. And it sucked. And
Mhm.
finally, my my ex-boyfriend's sister-in-law told me, you know what, Pauline, there's this app. It tells you like when these hormones go up, you feel like this, and you need to be eating this and working out like this. And I was just mind blown. I was like, how is this possible that one, I never learned this in like my first 4 years of medical school, two, from my mother or my friends or my teachers or school or anything. Like, how is this not something that we learn about? And it's purely the primary thing we need to learn about is how does our mind and body function in this cyclical way? And that you're not a victim of these period pains or imbalances for the rest of your life. Like, it really rocked my entire world and it became my passion. And so I've been devoting my life to hormone cycle awareness since then. So
Wow. Wow. Isn't that crazy that not only because I think for me, I kind of sit here and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, how were we not taught this at school? How were we not taught this by our parents? But you went through 4 years of medical training and none of this came up on the radar. Like, just zero awareness around it. That is incredible.
yeah,
That is
and
absolutely.
even doctors come to me or like gynecologists or psychologists, and it's just something that you don't learn about in medical school. So yeah, it's
Wow.
crazy.
So what was the shift then? So you went from basically having these like horrendous periods and then you went on to contraceptive pill and different forms of contraception for like 10 years. Then you were like, okay, like went through depression, hair loss and everything when you came off of it. What was the turning point then? When did things start to get better? Because you mentioned something really interesting was your doctor said to you like, this is if you come off it, this is you for life. And was there that belief still ingrained in your mind? Like, or was that starting to shift for you as well?
Yeah, I would say that fear was definitely, it's a huge shift. You have a synthetic hormone that controls your brain, your metabolism, your immune system, your gut microbiome, your stress response system, and your sexual reproductive system. Like literally all your six vital systems are affected by a synthetic pill. And then when I came off of it and I went through depression and everything, thankfully I got my period back like quite, soon after. But to me, and then I didn't have 2 week long periods anymore. And so that quickly shifted
Mm.
in the sense that, oh, like, and then I later found out that actually when you are a teenager, it's very normal to have irregular cycles and, your whole body is going through a big hormonal transition. But so that quickly shifted. It was more the depression that was just like, what is going on? I had no idea why I had depression. I had no idea that coming off hormonal birth control was needed to be planned for. You need to prepare your body and your mind. And, this is what I do now is I help women coming off hormonal birth control in a more smooth way, because there is a good way to do it with like having the least amount of side effects as possible. But yeah, I would say it quickly shifted in terms of like what society tells us and what your innate body tells you of what is right or wrong. And I was just getting constantly uh, disproven or challenged. The fact, the older you grow, you have to unlearn more of what you've been taught, basically. And that's what I was going through. And the shifting point of getting out of depression and coming out, because you do have 220% higher risk of depression, especially if you took the pill between the ages of 15 and 19 or hormonal birth control in general. So it's a very common side effect to be depressed while on the pill and even coming off of it. And that turning point of getting me out of depression was finding out like, oh, that's why I was happy yesterday and now I'm not. It's because yesterday I was in ovulation and now I'm entering the luteal phase. Estrogen drops, serotonin, the happiness hormone, and serotonin are correlated, or estrogen and serotonin are connected. So when estrogen drops, so does your mood. Oh, I'm not crazy. It's normal.
Mm.
And it's having this, again, hormone cycle awareness that made me realize, oh, I just need to learn about myself. and what is going on. And that's what got me out of depression. That's what got me into like really understanding why I feel the way I feel, why I my body's shifting the way it's shifting, and basically understanding the thought, the emotional, and the physical patterns and the energy patterns as well.
Mm. And was it because you talked about how it connects to so many different offshoots as well, like with in terms of like nutrition and sex drive and moods and emotions and thoughts, and was that overwhelming to like all of a sudden uncover this whole like area, or was it like liberating and empowering, or did it shift?
Oh my God, it's the most exciting thing ever. It's not at all overwhelming. It's just like, wow, everything is correlated to hormones. Literally everything, like every external aspect affects your hormones, and your hormones also affect everything else, like your perception on life and everything, literally everything. So for me, it's fascinating that you can bring hormone cycle awareness into literally everything you do, whether that is creating a business, doing your art, cooking, you know, whatever, literally anything. So
Mm,
for me, it's exciting. And for most women I know as well, it's like once you find out and once you learn more about hormone cycle awareness, it just brings this whole like Pandora's box of like goodies, basically.
mm. And I think
Yeah.
a big thing that you said was it's almost like that validation of I'm not crazy. Like, oh, it makes sense. And I remember that was a big thing for me too, was like, oh, the reason why I feel X, Y, Z today is because of this, or because I'm at this phase, or the reason I don't want to get out of bed today and go do a strength exercise that I did last week is because of this. It's not because I'm any less than this week. It's just I'm just in a different phase. But because I think we're just being brought up in a patriarchal society, and it's just like you say, the kind of 24-hour hormone cycle for the men, it's like, oh, we compare ourselves to that, and we're like, why can't I do the same thing every single day?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And
So
that's the
how,
big, uh-huh.
go on.
I was just gonna say that's the biggest like realization is to understand that we are not men, we are not small men, we do not want to be like men. I want men to be men and thrive as men, and I want women to be women and thrive as women. And and also no matter what gender you are, but as long as you're honoring that biological feminine cycle, um, and to basically understand that, yeah, we cannot live our lives based on the male hormonal schedule of one day of 24 hours. Like they are the structure and they can do the same things every day. They can work out every day the same or like, keep challenging themselves and whatnot. That's a very masculine energy. But women, we have 4 different phases of our cycle where our energy levels are different and things can go wrong if you, for example, over exercise before your period. That actually causes more stress, which will, cause bone density loss, muscle wasting, turning on fat storage, diminishing your immune system. Like it just, that stress, excess stress, especially before the luteal, or sorry, before the menstruation is going to do more harm than good. So we really want to focus on, you know, really relaxing and doing more gentle workouts, for example, before your
Mm.
period.
And that's tough. That can be tough when you come from living a certain way for a period of time. I know for me, it was hard to actually have that grace and bring that in for myself because it was like, but I've operated like this way for so long, and like my body should be able to do that. So for me personally, it was actually quite challenging to honor myself. Now I love it. Now I'm like, oh yes, I'm in this week and I can like pull back and I can listen to my body. But I think that's another thing that if you're not maybe as in tune with yourself, or if this is new to you, it can be quite challenging to all of a sudden learn how to really honor what your body's calling for and not feel shame for it as well.
Yeah, for sure. For
Mm.
sure.
So, in terms of hormone cycle awareness, then, how would you describe it for somebody that's just never heard of it before?
So, great question.
Mhm.
Hormone cycle awareness is basically understanding where you are in your cycle so that you can know how to better support yourself on a nutritional level, digestion, physical, mentally. It's just understanding that, okay, I'm on my period. That means like, yeah, don't go do a high intensity workout. It's time to do yin yoga, stay at home, be in your cave, like really relax. It's not the time to socialize, and just spend some that time with yourself when you are feeling the most vulnerable and sensitive. And that time that you are spending during your period to relax, like that will give you so much more energy for the rest of your cycle as well. If you don't relax, if you don't rest during your bleed, you're going to have a lot more issues, PMS, and lower energy throughout the rest of the cycle. So yeah, it's really honoring where you are in each phase. That's what hormone cycle awareness is understanding, okay, this is how I feel during this time. And then you understand after 3 months, like you understand you have these emotional patterns and these thought patterns, like, I actually often get in a argument with my partner on this day of my cycle. So next month, I'm going to be more aware of it. And this is what I also call the difference between your hormonal self, which is your ego, and your higher self. So how can you understand that your hormones, what they're just trying to do is make you survive, number one, make you survive, and number two, reproduce. And that's what this hormone cycle and this, we are part of the life cycle. We are nature, just like the plants and the animals. We want the right amount of sunlight, water, and nutrients, and that will make us our most fertile selves. And that is our hormonal self. That's what our hormones are constantly trying to do. Oh, you're going to have a higher libido during ovulation, and I'm going to make you take more risks because that's going to be a little boost of testosterone. I'm going to make you go up to that guy and tell him to come back to bed with you and impregnate you. And, that's your hormonal self taking over. And then you can have your higher self and be like, hold on, wait, I know where I am in my cycle. I tend to have a higher libido, and maybe that guy isn't, or that isn't the one, the father in my life. And you can have this awareness of, again, am I ready to have a child right now or not? Is this the right person or not? And it's understanding the difference between your hormonal self and your higher self. So hormone cycle awareness is understanding that. It's understanding where you are in your cycle so that you can make the best decisions possible for your health and for your purpose and your path.
I love that. And I love the distinction between the two because we talk so much about ego. So it's like really relatable to be like, oh, the ego, but it's like that's the hormonal self and then the higher self. And I really love that distinction because it's like, yeah, just because my hormones are acting up, it doesn't mean that I need to like necessarily follow that. It's like, no, actually, I can pull back, be aware of that, and move with my higher self. So then in terms of the 4 phases, then, and I know that there's so much we can go into here. So just as kind of a top view for those that this is new information for, what are the 4 phases and what comes up with each phase as kind of an overview?
Yeah, totally. So the 4 phases are menstruation, which can also be known as your inner winter. Then we go into the inner spring, which is the follicular phase. Then we go into ovulation, which is your inner summer. And then we go into the luteal phase, which is your inner autumn or inner fall. And your menstruation should last around 3 to 6 days. It is when all of your hormones are the lowest. So estrogen, you have basically no progesterone because progesterone, we'll talk about it later. But all your hormones are the lowest, and so is your energy. And so everything, just imagine, is just like as being as close to the earth as possible and just laying down on the ground and just being flat, just like your hormones, is what's going to be best for your hormones. And you really want nutrient dense foods, especially iron, magnesium, and zinc rich foods, because that's what you are losing in your bleed. So steak is a good time, this is the only time of the month that I eat steak. And otherwise, like, cooked broccoli, cooked spinach, lentils, those are going to have a lot more iron in them, especially if you combine it with vitamin C. So spread some like lemon or lime on top of the plant-based iron. That will actually help you absorb more iron. And otherwise, like, you want to do hip openers. So yin yoga is really great to do during this time, and to really just be gentle with your physical movement, to just do some gentle movements, stretching. You don't want to like do so much walking, definitely not a run or like going to the gym. Like that's just not what your hormones want you to do. And so if you do those things that are out, like if you do go to the gym during your period, like, and then you have PMS, that's probably why, because you're not going with the flow of your hormone cycle. And then in the inner spring or your follicular phase, this lasts about 10 days. And this is when estrogen is rising. And so estrogen, what it is a like building or growth type of hormone that is building the endometrial lining within your uterus. So this is what ends up getting shed during your bleed, during menstruation. And estrogen makes you as feminine as possible. So I'm sure you've all noticed that after your period, you're like, wow, I have more energy. I want to do this and I want to do that. And it puts you in this future mindset. And the reason why is because your hormones are preparing you for ovulation. Like, what can I do to get pregnant this cycle? That's what your hormones are telling you. So it puts your mind in a future mindset, which can come with more fear, because it's like, what if I don't get pregnant? What if I don't have enough money? What if I don't have a roof over my head? What if I can't see my friends? Or, you have just more of that fear because you're thinking the future. And but then you also have like more motivation, which is the dopamine hormone. And you have this, like, it's a really good time to be doing more masculine things like working out, challenging yourself, planning ahead, setting goals, and having business meetings when we're more extroverted as well. And this helps to build your immune system because you're socializing, you're exchanging bacteria by talking. And so while your insides are becoming more feminine, like your boobs become perkier, your lips become perkier, your voice becomes more feminine, like a higher pitched voice and more articulate. Your body shape becomes more feminine, like more rounded. And yeah, you just become more feminine on the inside. So what you need to do to balance the inner feminine is to do more masculine things on the outside, which is why a lot of the times I do talk about like yin and yang, because yin and yang is the mathematical equation to this life on earth. It's that duality, and everything is about yin and yang, and the masculine and the feminine energy. So while you're becoming more feminine inside, you need to do masculine things on the outside, which masculine energies are, thinking ahead, providing structure, organizing the plan, and goal setting and things like that. And you're a lot more giving as well. You're more in this like provider. It's really nice to like buy things for people, or to, oh, I'll get lunch today, and that makes your hormones feel good. And then ovulation is when estrogen is peaking, and ovulation is just one day out of your cycle. And I know all women are like, this is the best time. Why is it that it's only one day? But, this is the vital sign of health, is your ovulation. We need to ovulate. It is again, the vital sign of health, because it means that you are healthy enough to create a baby, to create life. And if you're not ovulating, this is something that's like, you really need to look into it. It's not you can bleed and not ovulate. So these are called anovulatory cycles, but you really want to make sure that you are, tracking, doing the most possible to ovulate. And so during ovulation, you can feel the high for about 3 to 4 days. You'll notice your cervical mucus changes, and so you'll have this like clear raw egg white mucus during ovulation, and even the couple days leading up to ovulation, it will become more and more clear. During follicular phase, I forgot to mention, is that you have more of a creamy white mucus. So it's very normal to have creamy white mucus. And then during ovulation, you have the raw egg white mucus, which is what makes it so much easier for sperm to go inside. And this is when you feel the most abundant and high and just like, oh my God, life is so good. And you're just like glowing also. And this is the time when you're the most feminine on the inside. So this is the time that you're most attractive and magnetic. So this is the best time to ask for a promotion, ask for whatever you want. Just sell your product or whatever it may be that you wish to magnetize or manifest into your life, because you have that power. Like naturally, people just want to buy things more from you, or they want whatever you have because you have this like confidence and the glow and the like you're very magnetic. So that's ovulation. And then we go into the luteal phase. And the luteal phase can only happen if you ovulate. So the only way to make progesterone, which is the dominating hormone in the luteal phase, is if you ovulate. If you don't ovulate, you're not making progesterone, which is also not a good thing, because progesterone is a sedating hormone. It's very good for your bones, your hair, just all around, like being less stressed and feeling good. So progesterone on the inside, now your body is becoming more masculine. It's becoming more yang. And what this means is that your temperature rises, your body is providing like a nest or a home inside. And this is a very like masculine energy, is to like be the provider. So you're providing this home or this nest for the egg to go into the uterus to make it all cozy. And so what you need to do on the outside is to do more yin things, so more feminine things to balance out the inner yang. And more yin things is eating more. You actually need 200 to 300 more calories during your luteal phase, because your hormones think you're pregnant. So progesterone, it comes from Latin of like gestation. Gestation means like pregnancy. So progestation is to induce the carrying of a child. And if you do fall pregnant, progesterone is what's going to keep rising during your pregnancy. So progesterone and the luteal phase are 2 weeks long between ovulation until you get your period. And then a lot of the times women are like, why is the worst phase of the cycle the longest? And this is what I do. This is what I'm here for, is to, teach you to learn to love every phase of your cycle, because yeah, ovulation is just one day, but then you have the luteal and menstruation that comes up for like almost 3/4 or 2/3 of the cycle. And, like we need to learn to love it. We can't live our lives hating our PMS phase and like period pains and stuff like that. Like that's not fun. Like how can we learn to really empower yourself with the knowledge of how to support yourself best, so that you don't feel symptoms and hormonal imbalances, which are abnormal. They're very common, but they are not normal. And for example, PAIN is an acronym for pay attention inside now. And that means that when you are having pain, when you are having acne, when you are having bloating or cramping or fatigue and things like that, that's your body's way of telling you, because your body can't talk to you in like a vocal way, but it's telling you through these symptoms like, yo, something's out of balance, like something change, like something needs to change. And it will make you feel more and more pain or more acne until the point where you're like, I finally need to do something. I need to either call Pauline or go find help from somebody else and figure this out, because these PMS symptoms are not normal. So the luteal phase is when we feel more sensitive. It is when you naturally have higher levels of stress as well. And that's to help protect you and your baby. Because it'll make you more introverted, it'll make you drive slower, it'll make you just be like, don't touch my pillow, that's mine, and you might have germs and might get me sick, and like, you're just a little bit more protective of yourself and introverted. And that's, so you just want to more spend time with like family and friends that would support you in a pregnancy, the close friend circle, versus like going out and meeting new people. And what else? And it's a time to also really lower down the intensity on your workouts. Again, you don't want to over exercise, because that will add more stress. And just think, like as a pregnant woman, and you're like running on the treadmill and you're sweating so much and your pulse is super high, your heartbeat and everything, your hormones think, why are you running away from a tiger? it doesn't really understand that you're just like running on a treadmill. It's reading the signals of the higher blood pressure and like the fight. You're putting yourself in a fight or flight mode instead of the rest and digest, which is what we really need to focus on, is reducing stress during the luteal phase, because your hormones think you're pregnant. So yeah,
Wow,
that
so
kind of,
fascinating. Yeah, there's so much in there, and we could go off on so many different tangents, but I do want to pick up on something that you said because I think this is really important. It's going to add a lot of value in terms of you said, PMS and these period pains and period cramps, they're very normal, but it's not a requirement. Like you don't have to experience that. And I think that that might be quite shocking for some people to hear because it's like we just kind of think, oh yeah, it's just PMS and like I'm just gonna have the cramps, I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna have that. So from what I'm hearing then, is it a combination of lifestyle and food and stresses that actually contribute to whether you have PMS and the severity of it? And are they the issues that you generally work with your clients on?
yeah, great question. So yeah, PMS or any symptoms are common, but they're not normal.
Mm.
And I would say that the number one thing that needs to change is lifestyle, because the two top main things that are going to affect your hormones are cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and insulin, which is your blood sugar. And if these two are out of balance, basically they're the top two tier hormones, that if these are out of balance, then everything else is going to be out of balance. And even when you make more stress, you produce more insulin, and that creates like, you want to have stable blood sugar levels. You don't want to have yeah, like blood sugar spikes and whatnot. And so stress, I would say, is the number one thing. But stress, there's emotional stress, there's physical stress, mental stress, there's environmental and ecological stress. So how are you as a person, as a woman, just handling stress? How are you handling your emotions? Is it something that is like you can't handle it? I need to go away. I can't feel this. Like, no, I'm not gonna let myself cry, or I'm just gonna like hold on to those emotions. And in Chinese medicine, they say that disease thrives in stagnation. And so if you are holding on to an emotion of that anger or that guilt or that shame, or those feelings or that resentment that you're just holding on to, and you just can't let go of your ex-boyfriend, and you can't let go of like what that person did to you or things like that. Forgiveness is one of the best medicines that you can give yourself. And to allow yourself to sit with the emotions and to allow it to move through your body, because certain emotions get stuck in certain places of your body. For example, shame and guilt are stored in your inner groin. Fear is held in your kidneys. Anger is held in your liver. So there are certain organs and places in your body that are going to store those emotions more. And that can also show some like, oh, if you constantly have pain or if you're angry a lot, that's going to be, you really want to support your liver on a nutritional level, maybe do some castor oil packs on your liver, a liver cleanse, and also to like forgive and to work with that emotion and sit with that emotion. So emotions are a big part of, a lot of, I would say a lot of the times, especially in a patriarchal society, that we shouldn't feel our emotions, like don't cry, don't do this. And
Mhm.
but women, we're very emotional beings. And I would say men as well, like we're human, and emotions are your hormones. And they are, that's what makes you feel motivated, is dopamine, or serotonin is happiness. And oxytocin is love. And, it just like affect all these emotion or hormones will affect your hormones. Then the physical aspect to it is also going to affect your stress. So if, again, if you're over exercising, or if you're under exercising, if you're just like, a lump on the couch, like obviously that's not going to be helpful. For like, movement needs to happen,
Mhm.
emotional movement, physical movement, and also mental movement. So if you are either like way too lazy, like there's no dopamine, there's no motivation, what something that can help you have more motivation is actually moving your body and like doing an exercise. And but also mentally, like, are you overly mental? Are you somebody who is just too much in your head and you're thinking too much and you're not necessarily in your body enough? The head is very yang and the body is more yin. So again, it's about that yin and yang balance, and to really relax the brain. Like, we have to sleep at night. We can't function if we're constantly working ourselves and constantly thinking about stuff. Like, you have to rest. You have to give your brain a rest. So that's, I would say, the sleeping and then being awake during the day is a very good example of how we need to balance our lives as well, is to rest. And I would say rest is a very underrated thing, but it's very, very, very important.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And where does nutrition come into this in terms of, I think I remember seeing that you posted something, especially around fasting and how at different phases of your cycle, it's actually it's not advantageous to fast. And yeah, you talked about some of the foods to bring in at different points in your cycle. How important is that in hormonal awareness?
Yeah, super important. So again, it comes back to the insulin and blood sugar stabilization. So imagine somebody who eats fast food, often throughout the week, or packaged foods and things like that. Their hormones are going to be out of whack. Like, it's not, first of all, the number one recommendation I would say is no packaged foods, because they are in the plastic. The plastic goes into the food, and that is a huge hormonal disruptor. Also, it tends to come with pesticides and preservatives and colors and fillers and like natural fragrances and perfumes and things like that. Those are all, and just even with nutrition, but also with your soaps, your dish soap, your laundry soap, your shampoo, your conditioner, like, what is really in there? Your body thrives on nature. So what I always recommend to my clients is do nature as much as possible. Like, your food, is it real? Is it, does it have artificial dyes and colors and, stuff in it where it's just like numbers and letters? Like, that's not real food. And in terms of nutrition as well, is that, yeah, there are different times of the cycle. Like, each phase requires different nutrients. You can eat, I would say, like, regularly, or, I mean, depends on the person, of course, but in the menstrual phase, you really want to focus on iron, magnesium, and zinc-rich foods, nutrient-dense foods, warm. I would recommend eating cooked foods for the entirety of your cycle, except for ovulation. Ovulation is the only time where your digestion is working like the best and can handle raw food more easily, because raw food tends to bloat a little bit more. It's harder to digest. But ovulation is the time when like everything in your body is working best. So digestion wise, and even like period poops. And I used to get period poops so often in the past. Like, I would have diarrhea 5 times a day, like, just way too often. I would have to spend my day at home and just be in the bathroom, basically. And so digestion, the moment you get your period, it will go quicker. And, because also your uterus goes from double the size to, releasing all the blood, and it goes back to just one fist size, basically. And then right before your period, your uterus is double the size in the amount of blood. So that space allows for you to have more bowel movements and also, to release. But then in the follicular phase, as you approach ovulation, your digestion speeds up and your metabolism slows down. So you actually become less and less hungry the closer you get to ovulation. And so this is the best time to do fasting. Like, if you want to be fasting or doing a detox or a cleanse, this is the only time of your cycle I recommend to do it, is the later follicular into ovulation. And that's because, one, it's going to be a lot easier. You're not thinking about food so much because you're less hungry. And two, it's your gut healing phase. So if you want to do a fast or a cleanse, this is the time to do it. And then in your luteal phase is when you actually need 200 to 300 more calories. So doing any sort of like nutrient deprivation is not going to be helpful at all, because that's going to cause digestive and metabolic stress on your body. Like, your body needs more food. This is where you're getting energy from food, whereas in the follicular phase, you're getting energy from stored body fat. And so really when you feel super tired in your luteal phase, just like eat. And I would highly recommend also having protein by 10 a.m. Because that will also stabilize your blood sugar levels for the rest of the day in a better way if you have protein by 10 a.m. So actually, a lot of the times a vegan or vegetarian diet is going to be nutrient deficient because it lacks a lot of like vitamin A, vitamin K, B vitamins, iron, zinc, and a lot of fat. And your hormones are made out of fats as well. So I'm a big proponent of eating, grass-fed organic meat and sustainable sources. But again, like I only have steak once out of the month. So it's not like I'm eating steak, in an unsustainable way for my entire cycle. But then fish is really good in your follicular phase, having omega-3s. And then during ovulation is the time that I'm like, you need less calories or you don't need as many calories. So this is the time for like having summer salads, and phytoestrogens are really good during this time, especially if you have heavier periods or longer cycles. When I say cycle, I mean the whole month-long cycle, not just your menstruation. Having phytoestrogens, which are plant-based estrogens during your follicular into ovulation, helps you detox excess estrogen. And what that can help with is, especially if you have sore boobs before your period, or you're having PMS, bloating, and then again having heavier periods, it's going to help detox the excess estrogen, especially the xenoestrogens, which are those synthetic things like pesticides and plastics that are going into our systems. Anything synthetic basically is going to add more of this xenoestrogen. It takes the same receptor as your estrogen, and it causes more hormonal imbalances, which unfortunately in this modern day, we're surrounded by so many synthetic things. Even like our couches are made with like fire retardants, and that's terrible for our hormones as well. Like the synthetic clothes, the airplane seats, and like just everything. So we constantly need to be doing detoxing in a way, in the best way possible, and also just trying to eat as organic and natural foods as possible. So in terms of intermittent fasting, though, ideally you want to give your digestive system a rest, and so have 12 hours of a fast every single night is good. So from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. you're not eating. But then that would say that would be like the minimal window, but then that you can do even in your luteal phase. I think it's very easy to, have your last dinner or like, finish eating by 8 p.m. and then you can eat again at 8 a.m. is very doable. But in your follicular and ovulatory phases, you can do it up to like 16, 18 hours if you want of fasting. Like if you're not hungry until noon, that's okay. Or like, and it helps give you, that extra little gut healing boost and whatnot. So, but yeah, minimum 12-hour. And I would say that would be for the luteal phase would be the maximum as well. Just, 12-hour window.
Wow, that's super helpful. Super helpful. I do intermittent fasting, and it's been something that I've been considering and contemplating. And when I saw you did a video on this about fasting, I was like, I have to ask you about it. So that's like cleared up a lot for me, and especially in terms of the having protein by 10 a.m. in that phase too, because you crave so much more. And I crave protein when I'm in that phase too. So the fact that you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, it's just another signal from my body that's trying to communicate to me. So yeah, really, really helpful. So then in terms of we've got the 4 phases. So I really want to talk to maybe the people listening to this right now that maybe they don't have a cycle. This was me I mean, I can't say I didn't have a cycle. I didn't have a bleed for 16 months. And then when I did, they were really sporadic. And for me, I didn't know how to implement this information because I was like, I don't know where I am in terms of my cycle. So it was like it actually made me like really upset because I felt so out of tune with myself because I wasn't bleeding and I didn't know where to start. So for somebody listening that maybe doesn't have a regular bleed or is maybe still on birth control or something like that, what are some ways where they can start understanding and connecting to this place of themselves?
Hmm. Amazing. I love that you bring this up. Um, and I just want to add one more thing about the
Mm,
last topic, though,
please
is
do.
to have protein and fat. Fat is going to give you more sustained energy. So I would say like add some olive oil on top or something.
Mm,
But yeah, your hormones are made out of fat, so make sure you have healthy fats like
mm.
coconut oil and olive oil, not the vegetable oils. Okay, but going into this cycle stuff, I'm really, really glad that you are asking about this even because there is such a thing as an energetic cycle. So, for example, with the women that I'm working with that haven't had a bleed for a year, over a year, 2 years, or something like that, I ask them like, okay, let's learn about the cycle. And, do you feel less hungry? Do you feel more hungry? Do you feel like you want to clean, wash your hands all the time and organize things? Do you feel like you're thinking more in the future or more in the past? In the luteal phase, we tend to think more in the past. And so I'm asking these questions of like, how do you feel? Do you feel like you're more in the follicular phase? Do you feel like you're menstruating? Do you feel like you're more in ovulation? Or do you feel like you're more in luteal based on your energy levels, your libido, your thought patterns, your emotions, and things like that? And then we start, especially using the moon is a very good indicator to like, um, let's say during it's new moon. Do you feel like you're more in menstruation? Do you feel like you're more in ovulation? So we kind of figure out with the moon phases where you would be. And honestly, like it's just I love it so much that the moment that these women start eating for their cycle and moving for their cycle and thinking and doing those like rituals for each phase of the cycle as if they were in that phase, they get their period.
Mm,
And that is just so, it's like this phenomenon and this thing that is just, it can't really be, scientifically proven in a way that even if you didn't ovulate, you still feel like you're in your luteal phase, even though you're not making progesterone. So that's something with like lab tests, they can't show that you're in your luteal phase. Lab tests are going to be like, you have no progesterone, but then you're like, well, I'm really hungry. I'm thinking more in the past. I'm feeling more emotional. And that's the energetic cycle. So it's very much a thing. I see it all the time with my clients, and this is how we get their periods back and their cycles back and balance their hormones again is to live with the cycle according to the energetic cycle. Even women who have had hysterectomies, so gotten their uterus removed, or even women in menopause, they're still having an energetic cycle. And it's more in tune with like the moon phases.
oh, wow. That is beautiful. That is so, so beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, and then something else I want to touch upon is, again, this is even from my own journey and other women that I've spoken to, is this thing of being diagnosed with something. So at the age of, I think I was 16, I got diagnosed with PCOS. The doctor, very similar to kind of, I think the experience you had, where it's like, oh, the doctor said, so that means, I'll just do this thing. So I got diagnosed with PCOS when I was 16. I got put on the contraceptive pill. And it was just kind of, I was just kind of told like that's me, like, like I'm just gonna have that for the rest of my life, that I'm probably gonna be really struggle to get pregnant. I'm probably gonna be infertile. And I just kind of took that on that, okay, that's me now. And I remember a couple of years ago, I was getting cramps in my stomach and I actually had a scan again. And they were looking for something else, but I said, like, oh, how are my cysts doing? Because in my mind, I was like, I've got these for life now, like they're just going to be there. And they were like, what cysts? And I was like, oh, well, I've got polycystic ovaries. And they were like, we can't see any cysts. And I'm like, no, no, but like I got told like they're just going to get worse and worse and worse. Like when I was 16, they were pretty bad. Like I'm like 10 years on. How are they? And they were like, well, nothing's showing up. And then in that moment, I was like, what? Like, what's going on? So, like, I guess my question to you would be, what's your experience working with maybe your own personal experience or other women that have been given diagnoses? And yeah, like, what happened there? Was I misdiagnosed or was like, did my body just heal itself?
PCOS is one of the most overly diagnosed or overly misdiagnosed conditions, I would say, and it cannot only be diagnosed with an ultrasound. The only way you can really diagnose PCOS is through doing blood work to see if you have high androgens or testosterone, male hormones, basically. And there are four different types of PCOS. It's inflammatory PCOS, post-pill PCOS, adrenal PCOS, and insulin-resistant PCOS. And yeah, it's so overly misdiagnosed because of this ultrasound. And the ultrasound is going to, see that there's follicles on the ovaries and confuse it for having cysts, but really it's just your follicles. So a lot of the times that's how it gets misdiagnosed. And then you get put on the pill for 13 years and so on. And then you come off and you're like, wait, there's like, I'm fine, there's nothing. And yeah, so it could have been a misdiagnosis. And also another big thing is that your hormones are so different from when we were teenagers, so different. Like it's very normal to have 45-day cycles and to have just irregularities because you're going through puberty. Your body was basically having a daily hormone schedule up until the point, you got your period at, anywhere between like around 13 years old, let's say. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, what's going on? Like my body's going through shifts and I'm preparing myself for pregnancy, and all this stuff. And so it really isn't until maybe around age 18 that you're having a more regular cycle of just like your body has come into its own balance. So it's very normal in those teenage years to have imbalances, or maybe not necessarily imbalances, but to just realize that things are shifting. You're in this transitionary phase. You're becoming moodier and things, all of a sudden these hormones are flooding. And yeah, so PCOS is when you have all of them. The only way you can see if you have PCOS, it doesn't actually mean you have polycystic ovaries as well. It's just that you have higher androgens. So women who have a lot of acne, a lot of like facial hair, maybe, growing like a mustache and like a beard, and maybe more weight gain around the belly, having hair loss in the male patterns. This is all because you're having too many male hormones inside of you. And funnily enough, hormonal birth control pill is made with progestin, which sounds like progesterone, your natural female hormone, but it is a synthetic testosterone. So it actually puts you into this hormonal cycle of the 24-hour male hormonal cycle. And that's how women get post-pill PCOS, is because you've been having this synthetic testosterone pretty much in your body for however many years. And then you come off the pill and your body is like overcompensating the androgens or the male hormones to like, oh, I was getting this from a pill before, now I'm not. So that's what I'm used to. And I need to like make up for that. And so then women coming off the pill have a lot more susceptibility to having acne and hair growth on the face and things like that. So yeah.
Wow. And I think I know the answer to this, but is it reversible? If somebody
And I think this is what like is making me do is like it is why I do what I do, is because that's something that in the medical industry they make you think that you're a victim for the rest of your life in this situation. And surely there are some things, that like can't be reversed in terms of like, oh, you were born with, 6 fingers, or, that's not a hormonal thing that like we can fix. But on a hormonal level, like your body is constantly conspiring for you. It's like the universe. It's constantly conspiring for you, and your hormones are as well. They're constantly trying to find balance. And so you just need to know how to support yourself the most natural way possible, because again, you are nature. And so this is what I'm here for. I'm like, everyone, you need to realize that your body is constantly trying to help you, and to trust your body because it has its own innate intelligence, and we just need to support it. And so everything is reversible. Endometriosis, I've helped women get rid of endometriosis, PCOS. They haven't had their periods in over a year and a half or something. They get their periods back within a month or two. Um, and yeah, this is how like it just really brings back the empowerment to the woman to really understand herself and to, yeah, know herself better than anyone else, better than, that doctor that you've been seeing or, um, it's really about the education of your own self and what your patterns are and um, reading and understanding how to understand your body.
Mm. It's so empowering, it's so liberating. And you mentioned something there which I think is so key, is trusting your body. And I think that was something for me on my own journey for so long. I was so at war with myself and I was like, my body is failing me and like my body, like why is my body not doing this? But really my body was just trying to communicate with me and we were just so out of tune that I didn't understand its messages and its signals. And once I started kind of being more aware of this type of information, it was like, oh, actually like my body is my friend, like my body is my biggest resource. Like this is like it's such an intelligent thing that and it's just trying to communicate with me. I've just not been able to translate it. And I think that is such yeah, a beautiful awareness to have. We will wrap up in the next couple of minutes, but I do want to touch on this before we close, is in terms of I'm hearing this so much, and I'd love to hear kind of it from your perspective. This thing of like the womb wisdom, the wisdom of the womb. I see a lot of like women's circles like around like womb and getting in touch with your womb. And honestly, like I don't know what it means, and I don't feel fully connected to my womb. And I'm like, I'm trying, and I'm like there, and I'm like, what is it, Pauline? Like, what is this womb wisdom?
Yeah, for sure. It's such a funny, like, it's such a like mysterious word. And even like 3 years into like this hormone work and stuff like that, I'm just like, what is womb wisdom? Like, it's such a, yeah, it's a very mysterious word. And it is this. It's womb wisdom is understanding what our wombs want us to do. And our wombs, they hold the ovaries that are making estrogen and progesterone. And so how do you learn and understand what your womb is trying to tell you, basically? Like, oh, during menstruation, lay down, relax, and eat nutrient warm foods. Follicular phase, go be extroverted. It's your maiden archetype. So, okay, so we'll start with the four archetypes. Basically, during your period, you are the sage. You're the wise woman. This is also what ancient and tribes would say, is that indigenous tribes would say that this is the time that you're most spiritually connected to source.
Mm.
It is when I get my period, I'm like, wow, I feel so high. And I have this moment of the moment I feel like my bleed drop, it's like I go up into the ether and I'm just like this is just a moment. And so this is when, yeah, you're the most vulnerable and you're most spiritually connected to source. And then when you this is the archetype of the sage. It's the wise woman. It's like the old, yeah, the old wise woman. And then when you are in the follicular phase, this is when you've become the maiden. You're this like new young girl who just wants to explore and be adventurous and learn new things. And so that's like your inner spring, yeah, your follicular phase. And then the archetype of the ovulation is the mother, because you have so much energy in creation that you can create the baby. You can create your idea baby, whether it's, yeah, an actual baby or a idea baby. But this is the mother. This is when you can actually provide for others and to give. You have the energy to give, basically. And then in the luteal phase is the archetype of the enchantress. So this is when you go into your like witchy self of like going back inwards and you're like focusing on your sensuality and your just like yourself and going deeper into why is it that I'm feeling what I'm feeling, and you're going deeper into like maybe limiting beliefs or inner child work or like the shadow work, basically, of yourself. You're going into your dark self and understanding why these certain aspects of ourselves are coming up, these triggers. And so womb wisdom is understanding the four phases of your cycle. It's being in tune with the four phases of your cycle, with the different archetypes, with the different energy levels, with the different nutritional, physical, and mental necessities during each phase of your cycle. That's what womb wisdom is.
Hallelujah. Thank you. Okay, I'm there. I'm there. I'm with you now. So now I see all the flyers and I see all the things. I'm like, okay, I've got it. Thank you so much. If anyone has a question for Pauline, feel free to raise your hand or you can type it in the chat. I do want to ask one other question just while we're receiving some questions coming in. Where does self-love and compassion come into this in terms of being connected to our hormones and our cycles, and how do you share this with the women that you work with?
Yeah, I think this entire work and this entire like understanding of the self is self-love. It's like, oh, instead of focusing all of my attention on like, you know, that the boss that wants to make me, or just the world of stuff, because university, for example, in school, it's about learning things that are outside of you. And so when you're finally understanding and learning about you and how your hormones are shifting and how the your cycle is, like, you're spending that time for yourself, and you're spending that time to understand how to better support yourself and how to better um, you know eat and how to better exercise, and you're literally giving yourself life and energy to have more creativity, to have more energy, to be able to give more. So the more self-love you give to yourself, the more love you can give to others. You're basically filling up your cup so that you can give to more to others as well,
Mm.
because you are understanding how to respond versus react. Your hormonal self is going to react. It's going to be like like if somebody triggers you right before your period, you're gonna say like, stop it. You're just like irritable and you're sensitive. But then otherwise you could be like, oh, I'm in my luteal phase. I'm about to get my period. I'm more sensitive right now. How can I express my needs and desires during this phase to my partner or whoever, is triggering that, and to just let them know that I'm in this phase of my cycle and that I just need some alone time at the moment and some time to, do a little meditation or yoga, and like that's a lot more healthy
Mm.
communication. So that self-love that you're, you know, doing by understanding your cycle and being able to communicate that is that love that you're giving to the people around you, basically, because you gave yourself more self-love. Then it's just allowing for a lot more compassion with yourself as well, because you're like, oh, I'm not crazy, and like, oh, I naturally have higher levels of stress, so I'm just going to do some more like stress reducing things, and you understand yourself better. And so it just brings so much. I would say the majority of my clients, like 100% actually, would say that they have more compassion for themselves because they understand those, you know, fluctuations in their hormone cycle.
Mm. And I think it's that thing of like really understanding yourself, isn't it? And I really felt this the other day, actually. I work with my partner and I'd just done a sales call and he's been kind of training me up on sales. And he said to me, like, oh, I've got some feedback for you. Like, I've got like a list of things we can go through. And I was like, and I felt all this emotion well up inside. But normally I'm like, yeah, let's go. And I was like, and he was like, yeah. And I was like, what do you mean you've got like a list of things? And he was like, well, yeah, I've got like a list of things that we can go. And I was like, whoa, whoa. And I was like, 1 second. And he was like, what's going on? And I was like, oh, I'm in my luteal phase. Like, this is too much. Like, I feel so emotional and overwhelmed. Like, I can't receive this right now. Can we do this another time? And it's like, whereas in the past, I'd have been like, why am I feeling like this? Normally, I'm okay with this. And then you go, like, I would go in on myself. But like you say, understanding that, having that reference point, I was actually able to like have compassion and love for myself and be like, yeah, it's just not the time and space right now. That's okay. And then being able to communicate that, then we can get better supported as well by our partners, because we can't expect everyone around us to understand us. If we don't understand ourselves, we can't expect it from others as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
Beautiful. Okay, so I'm seeing that Jenny has written a little bit about her journey here. Jenny, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to kind of speak and share. If not, we can just read it out as well. But I think you've
Hi,
unmuted.
ladies.
Hello. Yeah, feel
Nice
free.
to, yeah, nice to see you and nice to meet you, Pauline. All right. When I found this actually topic on Molly's IG, I was like, That's the exact thing I'm looking for.
Mhm.
All right. So just a bit of a background for me. I'm 45. I've been through a lot of contraceptives in the past. So I have 5 kids. Um, so I think I'm so fertile that I've tried many contraceptives, but apparently I still got pregnant. But anyway, I think that's a blessing. Um, but towards the end, 2013, so I've been ligated and all that. So everything was okay. I used to have migraine. I think that was the after effect of contraceptives. Um, and then afterwards, after ligation, I was okay. I normally don't have any mood swings, or I'm just me, I'm just normal. But like a year ago, when it started, my moods are like crazy when it's 2 weeks. I notice it's 2 weeks prior to my menstruation. And that kind of upset me. So I was like, am I close to the menopausal stage or something like that? Or my hormones, is it changing or something like that? And what should I do? So I went in to check in with doctors and OB-GYNs and all, and they said, your ovaries completely healthy and things like that. So I'm trying to figure out what's wrong. I know probably the age. That's why there are like hormonal changes is going on. And it upsets me because I'm not like that. And I just notice it when I do things that I was not supposed to do, like being upset or overthinking, and that that kind of stuck into my head, which that's not the normal thing. So Pauline, I want to understand, how do I go about it? I also mentioned I had breakouts, so I'm kind of relating it to hormones because I never had those. So it's been like a year now and having that. It's just on and off, on and off, on and off, which is crazy. I've been to different dermatologies, but it just keeps on coming. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for all that. So basically, the fact that, do you know what age your mother had menopause?
I think 50 plus,
50
early
plus? Okay.
50s.
Okay, sounds good. So this is another taboo topic that I love to talk about.
Ooh.
And the thing in Western medicine is also, you go to a dermatologist, but they don't know anything. It needs to be holistic. And like you say, it's hormonal, and it most likely is because, well, one, everything is hormonal, but two, also, where are you getting your acne on your face?
I have it near my below my it's at my chin,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
then at my forehead.
Okay. So yeah, that's the common hormonal spots, especially on the chin here. It means your intestines, your digestion.
Mm.
And what happens so you're most likely, I would say, that you are in perimenopause. So nothing to be
Oh my
afraid of.
God.
I'm in it too, don't worry. But basically, perimenopause starts up to 15 years before menopause. And menopause is a genetic factor, that whatever age your mother and your maternal grandmother had menopause is most likely around the same age that you'll get menopause. And this is something, again, that like I want to be able to have women learn to love each phase of our lives.
Yeah.
So how can we learn to love the luteal phase, the menstrual phase, but also perimenopause and menopause? And why it's a taboo topic is because it's such a scary thing. Oh my God, menopause or perimenopause. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah, and it's like, well, how can we actually just educate ourselves so that we can learn to love it as much as possible and to move through this transition, this natural transition in life, as gracefully as possible. So what happens in perimenopause, and what it sounds like for you, is that the fact that you're having the acne on your chin and forehead is that in perimenopause, you tend to have lower stomach acid. So what you can do to help with this is to drink like a shot of apple cider vinegar before every meal, or like a little bit of water with the apple cider vinegar in it. I don't recommend drinking a lot while you're eating. You want to separate your food and your liquids, because that like reduces the digestive fire. But yeah, so what you can do is to drink a shot of apple cider vinegar before every meal, and that will help produce more of the stomach acid to digest the food better. So that's like a quick tip that you can do. The apple cider vinegar, make sure that it's organic and with the mother. So it has, you see the live aspect of, you'll see this like cloudy mushroom kind of thing in the apple cider vinegar bottle.
Yeah.
And also what happens in perimenopause is basically your second puberty. So kind of like what we were talking about in the adolescent puberty age of your teen years, basically is happening again in perimenopause. So what's happening is that estrogen goes up and down, and you'll make less progesterone. I don't know if this is something that's already happened to you, but you tend to have shorter cycles. Maybe you were having a 30-day cycle and now you're having more of like a 26-day cycle. That's a common thing that happens during perimenopause, is because you're having lower progesterone. So perimenopause the symptoms are only temporary, and they might come and go. You might have some like night sweats or waking up in the middle of the night, or what else? Having new breast lumps as well. Some women get heavier periods because there are those moments where like estrogen will spike, and it can even go up to like 3 times more estrogen at some points. And so that will cause heavier bleeding. And then estrogen will drop down. And so some cycles you'll have heavier bleeding, some you'll have lighter. And yeah, so it's very much a time to go more yin as well, because basically you have like when you're born and when you die, you're up in the ether and this is emptiness. And then you are born and you're going more young. You're going more into this like up until your peak reproductive years. It's like, what do I want to do with my life? Who do I want to become? You're trying to find your purpose in life when you're young. But then after your peak reproductive years, when you've like made that fullness of creation of having 5 kids and whatnot, now you're going back towards death. And so this is more going back towards the yin. And how can you just go more into your yin, go more into your feminine side, do more relaxing things. You don't have as much energy as when you were younger, and you're more headstrong, but now it's all about being more in your body. So I really suggest doing more body like activity, like relaxing body activities, like a gentle yoga, walking, spending more time in nature, called green exercise, when you're going just on like nature walks and things like that. That's going to connect you more with Pachamama or Mother Earth. That's going to really help you reduce these symptoms, because you're focusing more on reducing stress versus like trying to fight against like what's going on. I'm not as energetic as before. I'm not this, I'm not that. Like I used to want to do this, now things are shifting. And again, your hormones are your identity, they're your ego. So it's how can you learn to go with the flow versus trying to attach yourself to the old ways of yourself. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does a lot. It's funny how I shifted, like now I just love the sunset, and I always stare at the moon and things and it just makes me feel calm. I'm just so happy looking at the moon. It's like, what's going on? Oh, it's probably because I'm aging and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. Keep doing that. It's beautiful.
And and you mentioned about probably my progesterone is going down, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So because I'm crazy, I went and have my estrogen, progesterone, and all those checked, and the results are saying it's just normal. So I'm kind of okay. So if that's normal, so what's wrong? So
then I mean, there are just so many things. I would say we'd have to have like a personal session. I do offer discovery calls if you do want to look into this further. And so I do give a free 30-minute discovery call if you want to do that. And I'm sure Molly will put the link into my website and stuff like that. But I'm super happy to go into that further with you.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jenny. And let's just quickly just take a little look. Rosa also said, is it normal to have a low libido at 26 years old? I mean, when I see a good looking and or nice guy, I don't feel any sexual attraction, even if I'm in ovulation phase.
Interesting. Yeah, this happens quite a bit. And so, I mean, I would need to know a lot more about you, of course, and to know like what you are, what your lifestyle is like, what are you eating? What times of the day are you eating? What are you overly stressed? And always it comes back to stress. And so are you very emotionally stressed or mentally stressed? And stress, basically what happens is to lower libido is that your the number one thing that needs to happen is that you survive. And sometimes your reproductive hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, get converted into cortisol to make you survive, basically, or put yourself in a fight or flight mode. So take a look at your life, and in terms of mental stress, emotional stress, physical stress, environmental or ecological, are you using a lot of toxic products? Are you using a lot of, are you in a toxic environment? Are you, just overly stressed with work, mentally, emotionally, or over exercising? Those are all forms of stress that could reduce your libido. So that's something I would say to look into. And again, happy to get on a free discovery call as well.
Amazing. Thank you
Thank
so
you, Pauline.
much. Yeah, thank you so much, Pauline. We are going to wrap it up. I want to ask one final question because I know that my listeners will want to know this. In terms of if somebody wants to get pregnant, do you have any kind of fertility tips in like ways to best become fertile? And then if people are listening to this, and I was in this boat as well, in terms of fear of coming off maybe contraceptive pill because they don't want to get pregnant, what are the best methods to not get pregnant? So people that want to get pregnant, what's the advice for them? People that don't, what's the advice for them?
Great questions. So when you are following your cycle, you are optimizing your health and you are optimizing your fertility. So everything that we talked about in this podcast will optimize your fertility because you are doing what your hormones want you to do. Because again, your hormones are made for you to survive and reproduce. And if you're following and supporting yourself the most natural way possible, and doing the emotional work, the mental work, the physical work, and the eating the nutrients for what phase, then you are optimizing your fertility. And in terms of fertility tracking and to know when to get pregnant and how to prevent pregnancy, I would suggest the fertility awareness methods, also known as FAM. And these are the temperature methods. So you take your basal temperature with a basal thermometer, which basically basal means the lowest temperature that you have. And that would mean first thing in the morning before getting up to go to the bathroom or getting up to do anything is to take your temperature. And it needs to say 36.34, not just 36.3. It needs to have two numbers after the decimal point. And then, so that's their temperature tracking. However, and then you could just put your temperature in an app, and then you can know like, oh, I ovulate like on this, on this day of my cycle, and so you're tracking it that way. However, the only thing with the temperature method is that it doesn't tell you you've ovulated until after you've ovulated. So you want to do at least 3 months to get a correct data. And what happens is that temperature rises about 2 days after ovulation. So that's how it tells you like, oh, your temperature rose. That means you ovulated 2 days ago. And you're like, what? I had sex 2 days ago. So that's why you also want to do cervical mucus tracking, which is my favorite because cervical mucus tracking, you basically bleed during menstruation, then you have creamy white mucus, and then during ovulation, it goes clearer and clearer, and ovulation, you'll see this like raw egg white coming out of your vagina, maybe when you go pee. And then in the luteal phase, your cervical mucus will be creamy white again. So cervical mucus tracking is the best way to know when you're fertile and not. And then finally, it's cervical positioning. And so cervical positioning, your cervix, so you have your vagina, which is, what a penis goes inside, or your nice, or any nice, clean divine thing that will go inside your yoni. And so your vagina is that canal, it's the birth canal, but then at the top of the birth canal or the vagina is your cervix. And that cervix will move up and down throughout your cycle. So during menstruation, your cervix will be lowest, just like your hormones, just like your energy, and your cervix will be open, just like your lips. If you can touch your lips, you'll be like, oh yeah, it's a little soft and open. And then in the follicular phase, your cervix will close. Also during menstruation, your cervix will be open to let blood out. That's important. Then it will close and it will move up a little bit higher, so about medium height, and it will feel like the tip of your nose. So it'll feel a little bit firmer. And then in ovulation, when your energy is highest, that's also when your cervix is highest, and it will be open, so it'll feel like your lips again. And that's to let sperm in. And then in the luteal phase, it will come back down in about halfway, and it will be closed and feel like the tip of your nose as well. So I would recommend, when you're on the toilet after pee, you put your clean fingers in and you could feel your cervix, or when you're in the shower, but it's a good thing to try to do almost every day, as well as tracking your temperature and cervical mucus awareness or tracking. And those three together, they have just as much, like 99.9% success rate on preventing pregnancy, and even, or for, if you do want to fall pregnant, you know when you're going to ovulate. So as well as hormone cycle awareness of understanding your emotions and your all the things. So yeah.
Incredible. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, your energy, your wisdom. There's just so much value packed into this conversation. Are there any final comments, final words, anything you want to leave with before we close for today?
Yeah.
Pauline, excuse me.
Yeah.
This about the method of the service checking. I mean, can I use it even if I am I am a virgin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. Of course, of course.
I mean, even if I am a virgin, this method, I mean, I don't know. It may make me feel a little pain, a little discomfort.
If you have, do you have pain and discomfort on your cervix?
I mean, I didn't try it, but I mean, I'm still a virgin, and let's just say I'm not used it to have anything inside me.
Yeah, of course. I totally understand. So when you're ready, I would say, just make yourself feel as comfortable as possible. And to also just realize that this is the most sacred place of your body as well. And the first person who should know and feel that space is you. Before anybody comes inside of there, it's you to know yourself and what your boundaries are and how you want to be, pleased or entered or anything. That is for you to know yourself first. So maybe that gives some, I would say it's empowering yourself with the knowledge of where you are in your cycle, and to know how, where you are in your cycle as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course,
Thank you.
of course.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So any final words, Pauline, before we close? Any last things you want to share?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me, and thank you, Jenny and Rosa, for being here as well. And again, it's the most empowering thing to know about yourself and about hormone cycle awareness. And it's you are the only thing. Take away all your clothes, everything around you. This is the only thing that you have is yourself. And so it is the most empowering wisdom you can know, is to know how to support yourself and how to understand your thoughts and your emotions and your physical patterns. And yeah, if you do want to learn more, I mean, there's so much to learn from on the internet and whatnot. And if you do want to learn more from me, Again, I do offer a free 30-minute discovery call. We can go into, I ask about what your lifestyle is like, what's going on for you, and it gives me a better idea on how I could support you. And I offer private sessions. We can have a private 2-hour session, or we can do even just one-on-one mentorship, having a monthly call together. And otherwise, I just came out with my self-study program. So I used to be doing, for the last 3 years, this online group program, and we go everything holistic about hormones. So really understanding gut health and how to move for each phase of your cycle. You get yoga for each phase. And then we go into inner child work, shadow work. We go into pelvic floor exercises, into understanding who we're attracted to in each phase of our cycle. And just all around 3 months of a weekly new topic around hormone cycle awareness. And so now you can sign up to this at any time, and you have it for the rest of your life as well. You'll have a workbook, and yeah, so you can check out my website. It's called balanceyourcycle.com. And you can also follow me on Instagram. I also give a lot of free content on Instagram, and that's Pauline Gisele. So Pauline Gisele.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I will post all of these links below this recording as well. If you are listening to this, I highly recommend getting in touch with Pauline, because as you can see, we've just scratched the surface. I know she's shared so much. You've shared so much wisdom with us here. And I just want to recognize you for the incredible work that you're doing, the incredible work that you've been able to not only learn for yourself, but then to share with others. It's so empowering, and it's so incredible to see what you're able to do. And if anyone is struggling with your period, with your cycle, with feeling out of tune with yourself, Pauline's the woman to go to, like she's the woman to go to. So reach out to her. She's got some fantastic, amazing programs, like you just said. And if you want more one-to-one support, I highly, highly recommend reaching out to you. So thank you so much, Pauline, again, for your time, for your wisdom. Really, really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to spread this knowledge.
Thank you so much.